broadcasting. Yards, touchdowns. Shut your mouth, broadcasting. First round draft pick. Believe we got stats, kid. Quarterback stacking. 100-yard dashing. So tap in for the action. What teams got traction?
Welcome to the same podcast. I'm your co-host Eric, and I'm always joined by my co-host Ron. What up, Ron?
What's going on?
You know what we do? We talk about the National Football League on a weekly basis, including the playoffs. And Ron, we just had the conference championship. You went 0-2. I went 2-0. There's a lot to talk about during these games. So we're going to dive into it. But first, we always talk about the NFL news. And then we'll do our, Pro Bowl predictions, I guess? I don't know. It's a Pro Bowl. Who knows?
Yeah.
So let's just get started. Let's get with the NFL news because there's a lot of hiring going on. And let me start out with this. Seattle hires McDonald as their head coach. Ron, how do you feel about this hire?
I feel okay. They had to move, I think, in a different direction. They wanted to focus on defense. I think that's what McDonald will bring them. He's the Ravens DC prior to moving there to Seattle. So they need to fix their defense. This is probably a good approach. I would worry a little bit about their offense now, like what's going to happen as far as who's calling plays and stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see what other moves they make, but I think it's a good fit for them.
I mean, they're definitely going away from the Pete Carroll type, but they're sticking to their defense first kind of mentality. So I don't have any complaints about it. And I haven't seen this. There's a lot of people that are being head coached for the first time. So let's see what kind of head coach they're gonna be. The other news is, Ron, and we just found this out. Vegas is gonna hire Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator. How do you feel about that? He took a hiatus, right?
He did. So this one's interesting because his name was rumored to be interviewing. Steelers never happened though. But his name was floating around out there for a while for several teams. I don't know. So his offense is almost the opposite of who Pierce is, right? So Pierce is more smash mouth, like old school, and Kingsbury is spread them out, throw 300, 400 yards or whatever, more of an air raid type of offense. So we'll see. We'll see how that works. They need to find a quarterback now. I wouldn't be shocked if they trade for someone that fits Kingsbury's offense, like Justin Fields. Probably fit perfectly in that offense. But we'll see. I think it's a decent move by them. I was telling you before we started recording that it looked like they interviewed Chip Kelly as well twice. So that would have been interesting as well. Both those hires.
I feel like they have to keep up with the Chiefs, right? Because Chiefs is all about scoring no matter what. And I feel like if you can't score at the same pace with the Chiefs, they have to do something. I like this hire. I don't know how it's gonna work because I just mentioned they don't have QB.
Yeah, they have one decent receiver too, and he's getting up there in age. So that they need to find some additional weapons once they find who their quarterback is as well.
The other set of news is Washington hired Dan Quinn as a head coach. Ron, is this a good hire?
So it's not their best hire, and it's probably not their first option, right? It seems like they really, really wanted Ben Johnson. They may have even had a deal negotiated with Johnson, and then Johnson basically pulled the carpet out from under their feet and canceled at the last minute. So not their first option. Dan Quinn has been around for a while, lots of experience. I don't know if Bieniemy got an interview. Doesn't sound like it, right? I don't think I read anything about him getting an interview to stay there and elevate to a head coaching position. So I do wonder what will happen to him, but we'll see. It's probably better than Rivera, right?
Anything is better than Rivera.
Yeah, I was never a fan of Ron Rivera, but yeah, I think with all these coaches, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
I have mixed feelings about Dan Quinn, and why do I have mixed feelings? Because basically, he was the architect of the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. And what I mean, the architect, I mean that he was the losing coach. He actually let the New England Patriots beat him when he was up 28-3. It was a Detroit-style meltdown. And then he was immediately fired, like during the offseason. So if you're gonna keep Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator, I think this team can be decent. If he's gonna get rid of Bieniemy and bring his own people, I mean, he did have Kyle Shanahan when that whole thing with the Falcons happened, but obviously Shanahan is not gonna be available. So I'm wondering what he's gonna do, whether he's gonna keep Bieniemy or go and bring his own people in. So I don't know if that was a stipulation of his hiring. I don't know. We can only speculate, but I want to see what he does with that information.
Commanders was a team. They were a team that interviewed Bill Belichick too, apparently. So
at this point, who didn't Bill go to, or have a phone call, or he just didn't want to leave his Nantucket site,
I guess.
The other news is Pats hire offensive coordinator Van Pelt. And Ron, I had to look him up because I didn't know who he was, what hole he crawled out of, and he's been coaching for a while. He went through the Browns. He was with the Bengals. Then I think he was a high school coach at one point. What do you think about this hire?
I don't know. I probably need to do some research. I know he played quarterback for a while, right? I forgot who he was drafted to, but I think it was in the NFL for a little bit, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he was actually started with Pittsburgh, I think.
So that's probably why the name sounds familiar. So, but I don't know. We'll see. It's an interesting name. How do you feel about it, more importantly?
I mean, I'm just happy that they're moving away from that Bill Parcells branch, I know that in the defense has kind of like his DNA, but I'm okay with this hire. I mean, Gerard Mayo is trying to be his own man. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I'm okay with the hire.
Yeah.
I think that until we actually see who they draft and whether it's going to be a QB, whether it's going to be a wide receiver, we still don't know, but I don't have anything bad to say about Van Pelt. I just want to see him in action. And I just want to see what happens.
Yeah, 8th round pick of his hometown Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew I saw that in his MO, his background. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited. I'm just happy that there was rumors that Josh was coming back, and I was like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want him back? I know he's like the quarterback whisperer, but Mac Jones is not getting re-signed for his 5th year, so why even bring him back?
Yeah.
Unless that was in the cards. Doesn't seem. Finally, the other set of news, Ron, and I say this for last: Steelers hire offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. How do you feel about that?
So I got to be honest, when I first heard about this, I was not happy at all, just because of his recent performance in Atlanta, right? He failed as a head coach there. But when I took a step back and looked at what he was trying to do in Atlanta and what the success he had in Tennessee, it makes so much sense. It fits so perfectly with the Steelers' identity. He is a run first, type of coach. That is exactly up Pittsburgh's alley. Derrick Henry had like his best years under Arthur Smith as the OC. Tannehill had his best years as well. So it's not like he fell off. Tannehill actually played really well. And I think he led the league, if I'm not mistaken, in passing yards or some crap like that. So I think it's a perfect fit for what Pittsburgh's trying to do. I think he will help to develop Kenny Pickett as a quarterback, and lead him to a decent season, because it's an important year for Kenny. It's his third season. They're at a point where if it doesn't work out for him next year, they're going to have to make a decision about who their franchise coordinator is going to be. So I'm actually optimistic about this hire now. I still wish we had more time to interview other people. I really wanted us to look at Kubiak, San Francisco. I wouldn't have mind interviewing Eric Bieniemy because his history and how good he's been. Now Bieniemy has issues with, he's not a player person. He always rubs people the wrong way, but I think maybe that's what the Steelers needed, to be honest with you, because we have a young offense. I was also hoping that they would interview someone like Byron Leftwich, but that didn't happen either. So listen, I'm not going to complain. I think this is going to work out great. I think it'll, if we go into next season, it may take a couple games to get our offense going, but I think he can, lead our offense, into relevance, scoring 25, 26 points a game. With the talent we have, I think we have more talent, except for the offensive line, more talent than what Tennessee had. Certainly than what Atlanta has on offense, but definitely than what Tennessee had at the time. So even with Tannehill and Derrick Henry, I think between Najee and Warren, Kenny Pickett, if he's our quarterback, the receivers, Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, the tight end. So there's a lot. I think there's some more talent on Pittsburgh, at least, equal talent, if not better. So I'm excited to see, some improvement for next year.
Yeah, I think he'll do fine. I mean, I like that he works tight ends into the offense. So, and Pittsburgh sure has a lot of tight.
Yeah.
So this should work fine. I think that there's some coaches that are better coordinators than they are head coaches.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that this should work. Under Mike Vrabel, he did okay because he didn't have to make a final decision. So I think if you take that out from Arthur Smith, he'll do just fine. Ron, let's just go right into it. Let's go into the championship conference recap. Let's start with the first game. Kansas City at Baltimore. Ron, you predicted to be a 27-21 Baltimore. I went with a 17-14 KC. Final score was 17-10. Ron, what's up with your boy Lamar? What happened? Why he basically went against his own self?
What do you mean by that?
He didn't run. He refused to run.
It's not his job to call running plays, right? For him, I think it's up to his coach to run the ball and to, get his team in position.
So you blaming it on the coach?
I thought the play calling was horrible. They went away from the running game, not just with Lamar running, but they stopped running altogether. And they're a running team. I'll say they're a mixed team. They're not a, throw 30, 40 time team. I don't know why they abandoned the run altogether. That should have been, including Lamar using his feet. Like, they should have been some designed runs that weren't called for whatever reason. Lamar didn't have his best game, but this wasn't on him. To me, I think there was issues with the defense. Had an opportunity to intercept the ball, didn't make the play, bounced off, and the other guy caught it. Zay Flowers, between the penalty and diving into the end zone and fumbling. They just blew the game. They picked the worst time to just play their worst. And I think they blew the game. I think they should have won. I think they probably feel like they should have won, but they blew it.
I think it was a combination of Baltimore refusing to run. I mean, when I look at the stats, 81 yards, 54 yards was Lamar Jackson. The other 27 was the other running backs, which did terrible. Say Flowers, 4 yards rushing is terrible.
Yeah, but Gus Edwards ran well. He just only had 3 carries. Well, that's my point.
He ran well. He had one for 15 yards. 1 carry for 15 yards.
Okay.
So the other 2, he only averaged what, 2?
5 or 3.
Oh wow. No, that's what I mean. It's like,
but
I don't know what happened.
3 carries? That's not on Lamar to say, hey, let's call some running plays.
Listen, even if because there was times when I was watching this game where Lamar, option 1 wasn't there, option 2 wasn't there, but he refused to take off. But
he's never been like that. He's always.
Wait a minute. The game before, he had 4 touchdowns, 2 of them rushing. Why do you think this game is?
How many were designed runs?
There was one play where he took off. It was like 27 yards against Houston.
That is not how Lamar. If you watch Lamar play, his last option is running.
So why did he run?
Even when he's playing, right?
If his options were not there, why didn't he run?
Because he's dropping back. He drops back and tries to go back to wait for a receiver to get open.
And
the receivers weren't getting open.
That's why there was 4 sacks.
His receivers weren't getting open.
That's when you run the ball then. Run the ball. And that's what I mean.
Call some designed runs for him. Don't throw 37 times, okay? Don't call 37 pass attempts. And I'm not saying Lamar's not a good pass. He's a good quarterback.
He's a great quarterback.
But don't call 37 attempts versus 16 rushes. That's not balanced. And they went away from everything I think, that they've done all season, as far as staying balanced. It was just a poorly, called game as far as the coordinating from an offensive standpoint. Now, I don't want to.
And there was a lot of penalties, 95 yards penalties.
Penalties were insane.
It looked like Baltimore lost its mind, lost the discipline. Say Flowers, he tried to do too much. It was like all year long, he was fine. And in this game, the pressure got to him and he did a lot of rookie mistakes. Frustration
For losing. And then when he finally made a play, he's like, got overly excited, and he's a rookie, so that might happen. And he cost his team, a penalty with that. And then the other one, that's why there's coaches that they say, don't ever. I don't care if you're going to make it. Don't dive for the end zone because you invite stuff like that from happening. So the other one, he was trying to make a play and, he ended up fumbling. So the penalty was bad. They got killed with penalties, this game. So like I said, I think they just chose a bad time to have a really bad game and not play well. And it's not to take away from Kansas City. Kansas City did okay. They did all right. They didn't run particularly well. Now, Baltimore didn't have an answer whatsoever for Kelsey on defense. But outside of that, I thought Baltimore's defense, played fairly well.
No, I would say the second half, they played really, really well. But again, Lamar Jackson just wasn't there at all. And
I don't think that's fair to say he wasn't there.
They only scored 3 points.
Yeah, but so it's always on the quarterback to score? You don't throw any blame on the coordinator for call running plays?
If you
don't throw blame for Zay Flowers for fumbling the ball and having a penalty?
If you're Lamar Jackson and you see that the plays that the coordinator is calling is not working, use your God-given talent.
No, come on.
Use your God-given talent. You don't just go, you know what? I'm going against Pat Mahomes and I'm gonna show him that I can play quarterback. No.
So show up your coach and just say, you know what?
Do you want to win or not?
Screw this play.
Do you want to win or not?
I know this is what it's called. I was going to do my own thing.
That's why they're on vacation, because that's why they go in Cancun.
But it's a team game. You can't have penalties. You can't have turnovers. Plain and simple. And that's what Baltimore had. They didn't play a clean game, and they lost. It sucks because I think Baltimore, I've said it all season, is a better team, and I still think they're the better team. Kansas City has nothing but two players on offense,
and it was enough.
Mahomes, who's arguably one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and Kelsey,
and it was enough.
Arguably one of the best tight ends of all time, and it was more than enough.
It was enough
because they figured out how to make that work.
They didn't turn the ball over.
Right.
They didn't cause any mistakes to the team. I mean, there was a couple of penalties, but they were not like, they weren't like killing penalties.
Right.
And I feel like there was a lot of those for Baltimore.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad. I feel like
they did what they're supposed to.
Is Lamar going to do the same thing he did in 2019? Yep, sure did. Got the MVP, but never got to this.
Yeah, but I hear you, and at the end of the day, you're still judged by Super Bowls. But I think it's not fair to add context to say it wasn't just on him. It was a whole team effort to have all those penalties and those fumbles and everything else. So,
but the thing is, at the end of the day, coaches come and coaches go, right? Are you gonna say that next year when Lamar is there and they lay an egg again, you're gonna bring the coaching in?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's no different from me saying though, with the Steelers, right? Like, you've been to the playoffs how many times and haven't won? Who do I blame?
It's not the same because
it's the exact same thing.
The Steelers haven't won in 8 years.
But okay,
they haven't even made it to the conference championship.
But that's my point. Who am I blaming? I'm not blaming, Big Ben.
Big Ben is not there anymore.
Yeah, I wasn't blaming him though, and I'm not.
Well, Big Ben is a winner. He actually won the Super Bowl.
He didn't win as much as he should have won. No, absolutely not. When they had AB and Bell, they should have won a hell of a lot more than that. Ask any Steeler fan.
Or do you blame the players?
Underperform. Well, what I'm saying, it's a team sport, right? I think it's a collective effort to win, and it's a collective effort to lose.
I think you're deferring blame.
I'm not making excuses.
This falls on Lamar.
He didn't have a perfect game. I'm not making excuses. You got
7 points is just terrible. Terrible. Especially, in the Final Four in the championship, 7 points. Terrible.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying it was a monumental failure on that whole offense. The defense played well. Again, the offense, the entire offense, play calling and everything, every single player failed at the end of the day. Lamar included. So I'm blaming everybody.
The next game, Ron. Detroit at San Francisco. You had Detroit winning 24-21. I had San Francisco winning 21-14. Final score 34-31. And Ron, I always told you, I don't like Detroit's defense. And they played pretty good defense at the first half. I mean, excellent defense. But why would you let San Francisco score all those points? And I know they had a turnover. But what happened? What happened in the second half that they let San Francisco back in?
Turnovers, right? And turning, not putting points up. Dan Campbell, way too aggressive, right? Had opportunities to kick 2 field goals. That's 6 points. That wins the game right there. They were overly aggressive in the second half, and there was a huge momentum shift. And once San Francisco got the ball and they didn't give up any, points, when Dan said, I'll go for it in fourth instead of kicking the field goal. Once they made that stop, that shifted the momentum, and San Francisco kept going. Now, that's not to say Detroit's defense doesn't need to step up. You said their defense sucks. they've been terrible the entire season. We've known this, right? But when we look back at this game, are you thinking, man, the defense stinks? Or Dan Campbell blew this freaking game by not kicking 2 field goals when he should have? Which one are you thinking?
I'm thinking both. I'm thinking...
And the drop passes, right? From their receivers.
This is what I'm thinking when I watch this game. The first half, they dominated, right? They had 2 running backs. They were rushing the ball. They were dominating. The second half, as soon as they had a turnover and they hit the panic button, they went to Goff, and Goff was not ready.
Stop! Come on, man.
He was not ready. He was not ready to. That responsibility of like, here, you pass it to Reynolds, you pass it to Amar St. Brown. I was like, what is going on? You have 2 great running backs, and you have the lead.
But who are you blaming? You're blaming Goff?
I'm blaming Goff and Dan Campbell.
Run the ball enough?
Dan Campbell and Goff.
That doesn't make any sense.
I'm telling you.
Goff is not sitting there calling the plays.
You're up by 17 points.
He's not calling the plays.
That's why it falls on Dan Campbell.
Yes, exactly. But it's not just Dan Campbell, for not calling the right plays. And Ben Johnson, who didn't finish at the end. Started great, but, didn't finish at the end. The players got to take responsibility too. Reynolds dropped the goddamn pass.
That's why Goff. Listen, I know that Goff
and who the tight end too dropped the pass too. That could have kept the drive alive.
That's what I mean. Why go if your running backs are tearing it up? Why go away from that? Why all of a sudden be like, oh, you know what? We're gonna become a passing team. Why? You have the lead.
Well, they ran 29 times. It's not like they didn't run at all. So they had 29 carry. The issue to me is you just didn't execute when you needed to offensively. You were executing all game, but when it mattered, when it was critical times for you to catch a ball, not drop it, they didn't execute. Plain and simple. That's why I keep saying football is a team sport. Like it rarely comes down to like 1 or 2 plays. There's always like, the blame goes around for everyone. You make a play, here and there, and you can win a game.
And then you let Brock Purdy take over in the second half because he did it with his legs.
Play that well.
He did it with his legs.
Killed him.
He did it with the legs, and except for that interception, he put up 267 yards on them, and that was mostly dunking people. I mean, I know Ayuk had that big catch off the helmet, but
yeah,
I know that Ayuk had that catch, but
would you say Purdy got lucky?
I wouldn't say he got. No, I wouldn't say he got lucky. I think that at the end,
he got lucky.
At the end of the game,
he got away with his mistakes. Right? He made mistakes, and he got away with that throw.
Wait, he had 1 bad interception, and then he had that crazy off the helmet catch. Why is that lucky?
Because that should have been an interception. That should have been a second interception.
The thing is that the DB was falling back.
He should have hit him in the hands.
It was kind of hard.
Or it missed his hands.
It hit the helmet.
It missed his hand. It went right through his hands. That should have been an interception. Make the play.
Listen,
that would have been. If he makes that play, are you saying Brock Purdy played well?
I'm just saying they have the lead. It shouldn't come down to that play interception. It should come down to, hey, we have the lead. Let's run the ball. Let's just run the clock. Let's just move. But they didn't do that. They
outscored 17-0 the third quarter. And again, at the end of the day, and I know Lions and Dan Cam keep wanting to call him Quinn now. That's how they've played all season. You go for it. You don't live in your fears. You put points on the damn board when you're up. You have a chance to extend it to a 24-point lead. I think they were up 24. San Francisco scored, so it was down to 17. You could have made it a 20-point game or some crap like that, and you don't kick the field goal. You went for it, and then they got the ball back and went right down and scored again. So now it's a 2-possession game, and you could have extended it to a 3-possession game.
Is that Staley complex of like, you know what? Let's just go for it. Let's play the numbers.
It was terrible. Terrible. And then the clock management, they still had a chance to win. The clock management at the very end of the game, running the ball, with, and no timeouts or whatever. That was stupid.
I mean,
they blew it. But I'm not saying I want to make sure I'm giving San Francisco credit because their team is great. Their quarterback's okay. I don't think he's top 5. I don't think he's top 10. I don't care what anybody says. You put a lot of quarterbacks in that system, they'll look just as good.
Do you think Purdy is better than Garoppolo?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't think Garoppolo's top 10. I don't think Garoppolo's top 20. Purdy I would put somewhere in the teens.
So it was an improvement then.
It is an improvement. What I'm saying is San Francisco overcame average quarterback play. I call that average. 1 interception, it should have been 2, took a couple sacks or whatever, ran the ball well. And I'm not saying Purdy isn't good. He's a good quarterback, but what I'm saying, their team is so good, they still put up 34 points. Now, their team is good. Detroit's defense has been bad. And Detroit had a chance to win. The players and the coach, to me, failed. So it's a disappointment. I'm sure they're disappointed because they blew it. They were the better team, especially the first half, at least. And they choked.
The thing is when I look at Detroit, the Rams were in the game. The Bucks were in the game.
I told you the Rams was going to be a tough match.
I know, but the Bucks were in the game.
Well, that was surprising.
And I was like, if Detroit was such a good team, none of these teams, especially the Bucks, shouldn't be in this game. You playing at home, you playing the Bucks, you playing, sometimes the offense shows up, sometimes it doesn't. No consistency, but yet the Bucks were in it. So I'm like, okay, when they faced the Niners, this is a really, really good team.
And they almost won, and they should have won.
They should have won.
Right.
But you have to play 2 halves. You can't play 1 half.
Who is the better team? Honestly.
The Niners are the better team.
I don't think so.
Yes, the Niners are the better team.
The Niners have a better offense and average quarterback play. Detroit, I don't want to say Niners. Detroit has a better offense. Niners have a great offensive unit. So McCaffrey's spectacular. The receivers are good. The tight end's good, right? And then they have average quarterback play. Detroit's offense, to me, is elite. The players they have, the weapons they have are unbelievable. The defense stinks, right? And San Francisco's defense, overrated. I don't care what you tell me. I can pull up a bunch of stats to show that they've been overrated for the past 8 to 10 weeks. So to me, these teams are evenly matched. Detroit, we know they have the issue with their defense. Same for San Francisco. At the end of the day, it comes down to who's executing. 49ers executed down the stretch when they needed to. Detroit didn't. You dropped an interception that could have sealed the game. You didn't kick 2 field goals. You dropped a pass.
I would still pick the Niners roster over Detroit.
You didn't use your timeouts appropriately. That's the end of the game. You can't make those type of mistakes and expect to win against good teams. Teams that are equally good, or in your case, you believe teams that are better. So, it is what it is. I think the better coached team won this game. So
I think the better coach won. I think that not the better quarterback, but everything else, the better roster won, which was the Niners, in my opinion. And Detroit, it was it's true what Dan Campbell said. This is probably the only shot Detroit has because, Green Bay's gotten better. I think Minnesota is going to be better once they figure out the whole quarterback thing.
So I thought that was going to be the case because I thought Ben Johnson was gone. But he's coming back. They've drafted, the last 2 years, they've had perfect drafts. If they can add to the defense, which we all agree stinks, in draft, in free agency, they'll be right back in the mix. I'm not saying they're winning a Super Bowl next year, but they're not going to fall off a cliff, with bringing the majority of their players back. I think they have a chance. Now, if they lost Ben Johnson, I'd be like, damn, what are they going to do? Like, who are they going to go to?
Heck, even Chicago, if they end up drafting Caleb Williams, I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl team, but they should give Detroit some.
Yeah, it's gonna be tougher.
So I think that division is gonna be a lot better than it was, the last two seasons. So yeah, I mean, I feel bad for Detroit. Detroit is a great city, but your team just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. You can't play one half and expect.
No, not at all. Listen, I've watched enough Steelers games too to know that even in the games that we lose, it's just everyone wants to blame the quarterback or the head coach. If your freaking players aren't executing a block, right, or catching a pass, or they're making penalties, all the players got to take some responsibility too. You got to execute, period. So football, like I said, it's a true team sport. You can't point your finger on just one thing. It's a collection of things. It's not all on Dan Campbell for those stupid, decisions. It's the players too had to execute. They didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to listen. That fumble that Detroit had, I think that it was the only turnover that they had, right? It was just the fumble. But that fumble that Detroit had, that should have been cleaned up weeks ago. Like, hey, you should know that you need to go left and turn right on this play. But, make mistakes like that and you don't execute. This is what happened. And I feel like the Chiefs, no turnovers, and, except for that interception, the Niners actually had a really, really good game. I'm sorry, there was another fumble by the Niners, Armstead. So, yeah, it's just, listen, turnover battle. And now we have basically a rematch of 2 years ago, except with a different QB.
Yeah. And I don't want to get into predictions, so we're not going to do that now. But what I will say is San Francisco is not winning the game if Brock Purdy does not improve. He has to improve. You're not going to get away with beating Mahomes with that average, to me, quarterback play. He has to play better, period. So he's going to have to make a play, and he's capable. I'm not saying he's not, but he has to play a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to show up for which Brock Purdy. Going to be the calm, collected one, or is it going to be the one that's has a good half but then has a bad half, or has a great quarter and then has a terrible quarter? You just don't know, right?
Yeah.
I do know that in the fourth quarter he played pretty well. I mean, he ran a lot. He has more wheels than I thought he did. I was like, oh, he's probably slow, but 48 yards is not bad.
Yeah. No,
yeah, one of 21 yards. So, yeah, I think that this is overall going to be a good matchup.
Yeah.
Going to be a good matchup. Ron, are you watching the Pro Bowl this week?
No.
You're not even going to watch the talent stuff, the skill plays?
No, and I know you're working there, and I've been there in the past. I got to experience it in person here in Orlando, but I have no.
I think this is more for kids. You have your star player in shorts, kind of relaxed atmosphere, signing autographs, taking pictures. This is more of a pageantry than actual
I've been paying a lot of attention, more than I should, to like the Shrine Bowl. I think they played today, if I'm not mistaken. And then you got the Senior Bowl this weekend. I've been focusing on that more so because the Steelers have always been invested. Like Tomlin is there at the Senior Bowl. He's always there, so, I've been keeping my eyes on that a little bit. Kind of looking forward to that. But, and then we got the draft coming up and stuff. So I've kind of moved on, trying to get into Celtics stuff right now. Pro Bowl, I'm not with it. I'm hoping for a good Super Bowl next week.
And according to the weatherman, the Sunday might be out. So
yeah,
I don't even know if half the skills things are gonna happen. It's so weird.
It seems like every Pro Bowl here in Orlando, the first two Pro Bowls I went to, those first 2 years in Orlando, it rained. While I was there, it was like either Saturday or Sunday. I don't think I was there for the game. It was Saturday during some of the competition stuff, and it rained. I was like, why the hell am I out here watching? So I just don't have any
Yeah, I know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be rain, a lot of rain, and people are just gonna be like, "Why are we here?
Yeah.
This is not worth me getting wet."
No.
Yeah, and that's mean. I don't have anything else to talk about unless it's something that we forgot.
No. But these next few weeks, like I said, after the Super Bowl will be interesting because, especially for the Patriots, I want to see what happens, and we'll talk more, in the off season, because what's going to happen to quarterbacks like Mac Jones? They keep him if they're drafting one. Zach Wilson, I think he's gone, right? I think Jets.
I mean, they already said that they're not going to pick up his 5th-year option.
Yeah.
So, and what I mean, they're the Patriots. So it's like he's not even going to compete. You know.
But he won't be on the roster next year.
I'm thinking he's not if they're not picking up the option. Because I think is this
his 4th year though?
He got drafted 2020.
I'm not sure.
2020. Yeah, I want to say 2020.
I thought they would have to trade him. No, he was drafted 2021. So he's on the roster.
Oh, so he's still, yeah. So he would have to be traded. So he might compete, but what it's going to
compete with their first round pick?
Sappy? Because I know Sappy's there as a backup. So why he's going to compete with Sappy and whoever they draft or whoever they bring in.
I think he gets traded. I think Wilson gets traded. I think a lot of quarterbacks are going to get traded this offseason. So I'm going to be interested to see what happens. Not just with the Patriots, Steelers too. We don't have Rudolph on the contract. Trubisky, it was terrible, getting paid $8 million, something like that. So he might get cut. So we need, some quarterbacks too. So that's what I'm looking forward to this offseason.
Yeah, but are you guys going to draft the quarterback or are you guys going to bring in?
I think we're trying to re-sign Mason Rudolph, but if we can't get him, we're probably drafting someone. I mentioned Tomlin's at the Senior Bowl. Supposedly, they're looking at some of the quarterbacks that are there for later round. So I think we're bringing somebody in. It's just whether it's a tenured person via trade or a free agency or a rookie. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I honestly, I always look at there's a lot of fodder going on. There's a lot of, speculation. I think one of the journalists was like, what's going on? Why aren't we moving along, blah, blah. Well, they got all the coordinators now. So you can move, you can write the next thing.
Yeah.
Write about the next, the next chapter. It's like, until we actually see the free agency and the draft and all that stuff and actually put a team together and we can say, hey, this guy is on the team. Let's talk about it. This is all like a lot of smoke.
Yeah. And everyone has an opinion on what the team should do.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes. Including us, including the fans.
Yeah, I got an opinion.
Yeah, we got tons of opinions.
No one listens to me, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that.
You write a letter with big type.
Yeah.
Big font. Big font letters.
No one listens.
So Ron, we're going to meet next Thursday. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl. We're going to watch the Super Bowl and then our last show. So we're 2 shows away from ending the season. Overall, what did you think about the season overall?
It was okay. A little bit of a disappointment, I think, down the stretch. Patriots not being in it. Up and down for the Steelers. Didn't go the way I thought it was going to go this season. Really disappointing in terms of Kenny Pickett's development. Matt Canada blowing up. That doesn't surprise me at all. It was just a bad hire to begin. We saw that last year, the year before. Big Ben playing. So that was disappointing to see that just fail monumentally. So, but there's always next season.
There's always next season. I'm excited. There's a lot of stuff about Bill or is Bill gonna go into TV, or is Bill gonna be coaching? Because even what's his name, Jerry Jones was like, no, it's not out of the question. I'm like, listen, stop with the speculation. If you haven't hired Bill by now, you're not gonna hire.
Yeah.
It's like, stop with the speculation. So I'm glad that, the Bill Patriots, that separation is over. I don't want to know about Bill. I don't want to even comment on Bill. I moved on to a new chapter in my life. So it's all Gerard Mayo going forward.
I didn't realize until today, and we should probably have talked about it, but Brady moving into the broadcasting booth. Did you know that?
Yeah, Greg Olson is out. Brady's in. I know that
Olson was pretty decent.
He signed a big contract with Fox. It was just a matter of time. They were just waiting for him to fully retire this time. I want to see how he does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I heard he's practicing hard.
Well, he got his podcast with the other reporter, Gray.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And he has a lot of experience. I never really liked him, especially when he did the whole thing with the decision.
Oh, yeah.
But Jim Gray. So let's see how it works. I know he's like coaching him up, so we'll see. I know Jim Gray's, he's really old school, so is he gonna make him say controversial stuff during broadcast? I don't know.
Yeah.
This I can't wait to see what actually happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so guys, join us next week. We'll have our predictions, we have our Super Bowl breakdown, and then we'll go from there. So with that said, peace.
Hey guys, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Any questions or comments, feel free to hit us up on Shut Your Mouth Podcast at gmail.com. That's shutympodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us on Twitter or on Instagram at SYM Podcast. Thanks again.